All right, we're looking good here, so let's kick it off. All right, thanks everyone for connecting with us today. I'm RC, and I run our webinar programming here over at BuildOps. For those who don't know, BuildOps is the all-in-one sales, service, and project management software for commercial contractors. Head on over to buildops.com to learn more about us. Joining us today for this webinar on invoicing and how to get paid faster is Justin Weatherby, who not only knows the BuildOps platform inside and out, but also has a history in the industry. So before he joined the tech side, he was walking in the boots just like you were. So he brings a real life perspective to the things he's going to present today. Justin, you want to share a few words about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the last 10 years, I've been in the construction software space, handling both project management and field service management, sales, and everything in between. Over these last 10 years, I've had the opportunity to talk to thousands of different shops across the country, coast to coast, including Canada. And there's like a reoccurring theme that we hear all the time, and it's around invoicing and trying to get that invoicing out faster. I think we've got some valuable information that we'll cover today. Prior to getting in the construction software space, as RC mentioned, my
Mhm.
background's been in construction. So I've been a field superintendent, project manager, service manager, estimator. So again, this is not just problems I've seen other folks struggle with, but the same type of problems with that, the problems that I struggled with as well. So RC, I appreciate the opportunity to chat with the folks today. Thank you.
Yeah, sir. Yes, sir. All right. So one of the reasons why we were inspired to do this webinar, just so you all know, is that we recently dug into thousands of invoices across hundreds of shops, and we found a clear pattern when it comes to invoicing and the payment experience. Is that the faster it seems commonsensical here, but the faster you invoice, the faster you get paid. It's really as simple as that. I'm gonna hopefully this works. I'm gonna share this link to you all in the chat, and I'm gonna also share it on the screen as well in a moment. But this is a report that we recently did. Let's see here. All right, Justin, you see that, right? We call it the invoicing sweet spot, how timing impacts how fast you get paid. And so basically, after digging through all these invoices, what we noticed here was that 10 days is really the sweet spot here. So shops that send invoices within the first 10 days following a job significantly more likely to get paid faster. If you wait more than 20 days, then there's a steep increase in the time it takes to get paid, adding as much as 30 days to your payment cycle. We got another little chart here to give you a little more context for that. So with all that, we thought it was really important to figure out how to help you all master this. So it's kind of less of a pain in the ass, to be honest with you, and more of just always on automated and make it easier for you to actually like have one less thing to worry about because you got plenty to worry about. So we got three things that we want to focus on today on the webinar that addresses specifically how to maximize this experience for yourself. Number one is how to nail down the 10-day sweet spot here. How do you get those invoices out within that 10-day sweet spot? Number two is how to sync field in office to avoid back and forth delays, which is going to hurt you. And number three is how to simplify and automate follow-ups. I'm going to stop this share for a second. So before we kick it off, before I hand it off to Justin to start doing this thing, I'm going to actually share a little poll question here. It's going to help us level set and understand a little bit more about where you all are coming from and your biggest pain points so that Justin can kind of gear his expertise differently. So hold on one second here. All right, you should see it on the screen. What's your biggest challenge with invoicing? So is it delayed payments impacting cash flow? Is it missing or incomplete job data? Is it time spent chasing follow-ups and reminders? Or is it something else? It says other and share in the Q&A. So you'll see in your Zoom field screen box, what have you, a Q&A button. This is what you're going to use throughout the entire webinar to provide questions, comments, feedback, anything like that. It's also how you can also answer that particular question if you want to. Justin, we getting some great intel here right now. Seems pretty equal so far. One's beginning to win here. Missing or incomplete job data is beginning to show up. Anything surprising or anything you want to share from your experience in the field?
Yeah, well, I mean, based on kind of what we're seeing here in the polls, it's a little bit of everything, right? It's an
Mm.
entire process that needs to be working in harmony to get that end result, which is getting the invoice out quicker. One thing that I was really surprised about when I saw the data, everybody sort of instinctively knows that the longer it takes for them to get a invoice out the door, the longer it's going to take to get paid. what really jumped out to me and what we'll be like kind of focusing on is how quick that drop off is
Yeah.
after a certain number of days. It just blew my mind. You would expect it to be a little more linear, but it's definitely takes off kind of like a hockey stick if we allow those invoices to sit on our desk too long before getting to the customer.
And is that like human psychology? Or like, what is it, do you think? I know we might dig into this a little bit later in a moment.
Yeah.
Like, why do you think there is such a drop off? What's the behavior situation there?
So the behavior situation is on for our customer, right? So
Yeah.
our customer's customer, what
Yeah.
they have requested work to be done. That work has been performed, and in their sort of behavior, they expect to see an invoice on that within about 10 days. If they don't see it after that, it sort of drops off their radar, and basically we have told them unintentionally that the invoicing isn't that important because we didn't get it out to you. So it's
Mm,
probably not super important that you pay within
interesting.
30 days. And then you end up going past your actual terms. And then what do? Do you really beat the customer up about that? It's like, no. Took us a month to get it
Yeah.
to them. If they're 15 days overdue, I'm going to have a hard time really enforcing like a late policy to try to encourage payment quicker.
Interesting. So you're saying, yes. Okay. It- Maybe you'll answer this question later as well, but and if you are going to answer this question later, then don't answer it right now, but is there a sending invoice too soon issue as well, right? Like, is it like problematic to send right away? Does that deliver a sort of like a negative sort of response or experience?
There's definitely a sweet spot to that. We'll kind of chime in and hop in and talk about that. As you mentioned, there's going to be a couple major parts of this webinar that we want to hit on. Nailing that sweet spot. Is there such thing as too early? There's certainly, we know there's something that's too late. So we'll talk about that. But like, how do we do that? Big thing for me, especially with my background, is connecting the office and the field. That usually is where that breakdown happens and where the delays start becoming exponential, right? And again, I'll get into that in a little bit more detail. And then finally, let's like, how do we make sure we get it right the first time? Because last thing we want to do is not be confident when we're sending the invoice out that it is full and correct. Because as we know, a lot of times the reason these sit on our desk is we want to make sure we're not going to get blindsided by another vendor invoice that we weren't expecting before we
Mm.
invoice these out, et cetera. So we'll kind of dive into that into some detail. And I think it starts right at the beginning. So what we'll do today is just go through a quick day in the life, focusing on where along this process we are going to increase the speed to invoicing because it starts right when the first phone call comes in. So number one, I need to know, is this an existing customer? So I can look the customer up a number of different ways here in the software, but I'm going to hit the search bar up here at the top. Now, one thing we'll see as we pull up our list of customers is we want to be a good partner with our customer. And part about being a good partner and providing good customer service is actually to let them know if they do have an outstanding balance with us. The best time to ask for payment is when they're requesting work. And usually, if framed properly, this isn't coming off as you collecting a debt, right? It's hey, we want to be a good partner. We want to let you know that if y'all don't pay these invoices, you're at credit risk right now. Eventually, you'll owe us too much money and we won't be able to dispatch work. 9 times out of 10, when you bring that up, one, the person you're actually talking to probably doesn't have a lot to do with getting that invoice paid, but they know who to call. And what they'll do from an operations perspective is call their accounts payable team and go, hey, listen, we need to get some payment release to these guys. They said they've got a few invoices out. Can you follow up on that? So number one, right when that phone call comes in, I can quickly identify, is there a risk sort of to the credit? Inherently, are there invoices there outstanding? Dropping in one.
I'm gonna interject for 1 second, just to remind everyone as well, again, that you have a Q&A button at the bottom that you can use to ask any questions, feedback. I will monitor that Q&A and then pop in those questions on your behalf for Justin. And as you dive into the rest of this, Justin, just also to be clear, we're going through, as for our example, the build ops platform. Is there in reality, Justin, and like, be honest here, like the ability for folks on the call to do this, like identify credit risk and what have you, on their own, like with something sort of makeshift or anything, or is it much more powerful and useful to have a tool, or what do you got?
So what I can talk about is how are people doing this today, right? They don't have build ops, right? And what's been really awesome about my position, and it makes a lot of sense, but people rarely think about it. I only speak to contractors who have been successful. You do not reach the point of needing a build ops until you've reached some level of success, until there's enough cats out there that's tough to herd them. And so, in general, how are people doing this today? They have this information, but it lives in their accounting package. A lot of times, folks limit who has access to the accounting package. Rightfully so, right? We don't want every buddy like me with access to the financial package. We want to keep that, for the controller and the CFO and the AP and AR team. So folks know this. They certainly know if somebody's outstanding, but historically, this is a accounting function. It's up to the accounting team to follow up on the outstanding AR, and it should be. But as an operations person, if I get a little bit of visibility to this, I can also facilitate that. And if you ask my AR clerk if she minds if I mention that they owe us money when they're calling in requesting work, she will say, "No problem at all, Justin. Feel free. But you're making my job easier." Absolutely. So now keep in mind that this is all permission controlled. So I'm not showing dollar amounts to people who don't need to see that, right? Your guys out in the field, they probably don't need to see that. Folks further down the management, sort of tier, they don't need to see that. But at a high level, our dispatchers should probably know if this person's on accounting hold or not. So how do we kind of mitigate them even reaching this point? As soon as that job comes in and I'm recording that work order, when I do that in build ops, I have a couple fields here that are super important to get paid. One is the customer PO number. Raise your hand within the chat exactly. Just let me know how many of you all out there right now have at least one customer that requires a PO number on the invoice to get paid. There should be a lot of hands going up. Yep. Oh, there's actually literally hands. Cool. I didn't know that was a thing. I love it. Hands going up there. So we were able to capture that here right on the work order. And you can also set up a customer so that their account requires a PO number before an invoice goes out the door. So we'll try to get it during the call. If we're not able to get it prior to invoice, the system will let you know, hey, you need to get this PO number and you might need to follow up on that. Also, the same vein would be like a work order number. So a lot of times the customer will have their own job, their own work order number. Again, they want to see that on their invoice to get paid. Since the hands thing works so well, which RC, I just ran into that blindly. So another one I want to know is how often is the person I'm meeting with on site, the property rep, Joe, in this case, different than the person who called in and authorized the work? In this case, Hillary. Hillary called in and requested the work. I'm meeting with Joe on site. How often does that happen? Again, this helps to speed up the invoicing process. We haven't even gotten to an invoice yet, and we've already been able to take 3 or 4 steps as an operation team to help the back-end AR team get their stuff in here. Now, we're going to run this thing actually start to finish. So why are we going out there? We're just going to say no heat in the lobby. Boom. Keep it nice and simple. Now we've got a work order. We've captured the information that it's going to take for billing. One thing to mention is there's something called a price book. A price book has been assigned to this work order based on my customer or based on the location. What is a price book? It's your labor rates and your material markup rates. Now, in this example, I think it's important to note, in this example that I'm giving, this is time and material. Now, most of this is all the same, whether it's quoted work or time and material work or larger project work. In general, we need good field office communication, and then we need good processes in place back in the office to make sure that we're surfacing this work quickly so that we're getting the invoicing out quickly. Now, I need to get this assigned to a technician. This isn't a webinar about dispatching, so I'm going to do that super quick. I can do that one of two ways. I can come in here, and if I already know the technician that I want to send out here, I can go ahead and select that technician and the day and time. But to be honest with you, I'm not going to know that who's available unless I'm looking at the dispatch board. So looking at the dispatch board here, this is a day view. We also have a week view. which you can see the days of the week across the top. I'm going to put this one up because it's a little bigger and easier to see. And I can sort and filter my technicians down the left-hand side. In this case, I'm going to say, hey, who's my chiller guys or my generator guys, or who maybe these people have, similar skill set or a certain type of work. And down here below, I've got my open work orders, and I can grab one of those work orders and just drag it up for assignment. Now, a lot of times, I'm not just sending one tech, so I can pop this open and add additional techs as needed. Change the assignment, change the status, make the visit longer or shorter, basically anything that you'd expect to see out of a scheduling dispatching tool, we're able to do that. And then this drives the notification to the guys out in the field. So one, if we're going to invoice this job quickly, we need the guys to finish quickly. How are they going to finish quickly? Having all the information they need to be successful. And this is sort of where we transition over to the mobile app. RC, are you able to see my cell phone over here on the left?
It's a gorgeous picture of something back there, but yes, I can.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And I leave it here so that it's real clear. We're talking about a mobile device. This can be an Android device. It can be an Apple device. It can be a phone. It can be a tablet. This works with or without an internet connection. So if I pop open the BuildOps app, the first thing that I'm going to see is a list of my calls, right? I'm a technician out in the field. I'm going to see a list of the calls, the work that I'm assigned to. So super helpful is knowing what I need to do. Let's talk about getting it done. Right here at the top, I'm going to give a lot of great information for the technician. So we've got some action buttons. These will update the dispatch board. So you'll actually be able to see in real time as the dispatch board is being updated, as the technicians are interacting with their calls. So I can see Justin's traveling. Well, how do I even get to the site? Good thing I got the address right here. I can click on that. It'll pop up in Apple Maps, Google Maps, whatever y'all, Waze, whatever you're using for navigation, so we can figure out our way to the job site. Obviously, super helpful. Let you all know that, hey, I'm working, right? I've arrived to the job site. So that, again, updating the dispatch board, and every time they click one of these buttons, it's capturing their GPS location. Because sometimes our customer goes, your guy wasn't here, right? Well, now you can see if he was or not. Rolling down this page, it's all informational. So who am I meeting with? I'm supposed to meet with Joe. Can't find Joe anywhere. Let me go and click on his phone number. Now I can give Joe a quick call, right? Hey, Joe, I'm in the front. You come meet me, up here. Also, we've got something in here called property instructions. These are notes that you put at the service location, and any call you dispatch to that service location will now include these notes. I don't have to remember to tell them the gate code every time. I don't have to remind them to check in with Sally at the front desk. I'm able to set that up once, and whatever those notes are, don't park in the alley, this is where the equipment room is, etc., they're going to see that front and center. Now, I'll be honest with you, one thing technicians love to ask is who was out here last? What did we do last time we were out here? So you can also, it's optional, allow the technician to view past jobs. I guess using the Zoom controls, this is an optional feature, allowing them to view past jobs. They're not going to see dollar amounts. They're not going to be able to edit the notes or anything on the past jobs. But what they're going to be able to see is, hey, we went out here before for no cooling in the lobby. Who went out there? Oh, Justin went out there January 9th. And then they can come in and actually see the notes. They can't edit any of this stuff, but they can see the notes the previous technician had left, the parts that they used. So using those Zoom controls, is this feature of being able to view past jobs something that you all would switch on for your technicians, or is that something you would leave off and basically have them call the office for? Let me know there. Now, rolling down here, this top section, like I mentioned before, is all informational. And this bottom section, where the report is all is just that, is the report of what's been happening out on the job site. Now, one way to ensure quicker invoicing is making sure this report section has been filled out appropriately. So let's just play a role that I used to play, the tech that's in the hurry, right? I'm tech, I'm in a hurry, I'm all done. Well, that's weird. You're all done. I didn't see you do anything. Are you sure you're done? Yep. Don't worry, boss lady. I'm totally done. No, you're not done. You didn't fill out any of the required fields. So when we're talking about speed to invoice, this is sort of the punchline I was trying to get to. is we're going to enforce, you're able to pick and choose which fields are required for the technician before they can move on to the next job. And a lot of folks, their technicians fill these out at the end of the day. They fill them out at the end of the week today without a system in place. And I don't know if it's a good night's sleep, if it's a home cooked meal, maybe it's a couple of adult beverages, but you wake up the next morning with amnesia. There's no way, if I'm going back at the end of the week trying to fill this out, that the information is going to be highly accurate. It may be complete, it may be done, but there's nobody in the world, there's very few people who are going to be able to accurately recount what happened on all these jobs from days before. The equipment all starts looking the same after a while. So we want to capture this at the time of completion.
I think this is a really interesting call out that, right? Like the speeds of invoicing happens before invoicing. That's there are steps before invoicing even happens to ensure that the dominoes fall the way that you want them to fall. So great call out there for sure.
Yeah, no, thanks RC, because really that's the big part is this invoicing. Historically, people look at the back office, right? And they look at the folks in the back office. They go, "We need to get invoices out faster." It's if we've done everything that we need to, but when it gets to that point, the getting out the invoice is the easy part, and we'll see that here in just a second. So we're going to run through this quick. What fields are required in my example? Photos. I can either take a photo on the fly or I can pull them from my camera. What do we got here? Oh, we got the kid playing soccer, kid building Legos. Let's go ahead and add those in. As many pictures as y'all need. Inventory. That's a weird one to make required. Well, I'm not requiring that they add a piece of inventory. I'm requiring at very least that they acknowledge the section. So that way, when I go to invoice this and this section's blank, I don't need to call them and ask them, like, are you sure? Because it already asked them if they were sure. Well, now that you made me think about this 3 times, no, I'm not sure. What did I use? I used a belt, I used a filter, I used a capacitor, I used a breaker, whatever it is that I used. We'll go ahead and get this thing added to the job report. What else did what else is important? Did I make any purchases? So too often our AP team has no idea. No, historically, they've had no idea if a purchase has been made. The first time they figure out if we made a purchase out in the field is they got a vendor invoice. Some of those happen the same day. Some of those happen in a week. Some of them trickle in who knows when exactly. So what we want to do again is help out the back office team. Let them know that I made a purchase and they should be looking for a vendor invoice, or even better yet, once they're confident in this process, sure, I'm matching up vendor invoices as they come in, but I don't have to wait for those because we now own that process. What do I mean? Is the guys out in the field can get a number for every purchase that they make, a unique number, so that we can track that. Vendor is super easy. Where did you guys go? Where are you buying stuff from? In our case, we'll say Ferguson. PO type, that's just a way of grouping POs together. And then it'll be hard for y'all to see here, but it is a requirement that I take a picture of my packing slip. So I can't move on without taking a picture of my packing slip. Now, y'all are going to have to use your imagination. I probably should. I don't, but probably should have a packing slip here handy. But they take a picture of that packing slip. Now, some folks make their text line item out, all the line items on the invoice. Something we're not really typically looking to do. At very least, just give me the grand total. Now, if for some reason they forget to do this out in the field, I can pick this up for them back in the office. So how much was this purchase for? $215.75. Now, you might say my vendor invoicing sometimes doesn't include pricing. That's fine. That's okay. That's when we'll pick this back up in the office, but we know to be looking for that vendor invoice because I don't know if I'm just using the job number as my PO number. Did you make one purchase or did you make 100 purchases? I have no idea. That's why this is so powerful as far as speeding up the time to invoice. Couple of things I'm going to wrap up here. One, visit summary. Right, I need to know what you did while you were out there. And we can use the talk to type feature to fill this out so that we can get a lot of information in the system quickly. We went out there because there was no cooling in the lobby. So went to inspect the issue of no cooling in the lobby, period. Checked the unit, it had a bad capacitor, period. Replace the capacitor, ran a system self-check. Everything's working great now. We have AI built into this, so whether I typed it in and fat fingered it, or whether the talk to type didn't pick it up perfectly, the AI can come back in and clean it up for me. Last but not least, I got to record some time here. So how many hours do I have on the job? Let's say 2 hours. Now time tracking, don't worry. There's about half a dozen different ways to track time. In general, either they punch in, punch out, they fill out a time card, or some combination thereof, but we're going to have them sign off. I was not injured. My timesheet's true and correct. I took all my breaks, whatever it happens to be that you guys need in your attestation, we'll capture that as well. Now this call is finished. Now we can move on to actually invoicing this out, but we've seen how taking the steps ahead of time can now speed up the invoicing process, because had I started this webinar with how do I invoice and showing you what that looked like, you're going to see that would have been all of 5 minutes, or very short, because it doesn't take a lot once we've done our homework out in the field. If there's any questions, put those down in the chat on the mobile app. Happy to touch base on those. Also, if there's specific questions, we're also happy to dive in with like a one-on-one with your team to get those answered. But let's kind of get to that next step. Let's get to where we really wanted to be, which is invoicing out this job. Now, you're going to see here on the dispatch board that this job is complete. But the dispatch board is not a great way to be managing a bunch of open work orders, right? It's a great way to do scheduling. So what we'll actually do with this is we'll pop all of these work tickets go onto your table. And this table, you can sort and filter however you see fit. If we're talking about invoicing, what type of jobs am I looking for? I'm looking for completed jobs that are ready to be reviewed by like a service manager, service coordinator, and have not been invoiced yet. So in our case, here's the call that we had created. There's no heat in the lobby. Let's go ahead and pop that job open. And to do our review and invoicing, that all happens here under the job report. Doesn't matter if we went out with one technician for one day or we went out with dozens of technicians for dozens of days. Makes no difference. Our system one is very good at that. And what you'll see down here below is you'll just see an entry for each technician that worked against this job, for each day that they worked against this job. All of that information is going to be front and center. I can see the billable hours, the billable rate. If I wanted to, for some reason, change the billable hours, I'm able to do that without messing with their time card. I can see what items they pulled off the truck. If for some reason I wanted to change the cost of an item, I can make these changes on the fly as I need to. I could put in my markup and put the markup in however I see fit. So we'll say I want to mark this up 15%, and it'll tell me my sell price. Or I can go the other way, change the sell price and say, hey, you know what? I want to sell this thing for $80, and it'll tell me what my markup is. I can see the purchases that the guys have made. I can see their receipts. I now have every piece of information that I need to invoice this job. Now, there's usually a couple people who have a hand in this process. Service manager, service coordinator is doing this initial review maybe, and their job, right? This job is completed. The POs have been received. It's waiting on review. I just did the review. Looks good. Let's go ahead and mark this thing as being reviewed. And ultimately, I can now flag this job ready to invoice. Now, where the handoffs happen within your organization is essentially player's choice. BuildOps will accommodate the right reporting, the right views, so that each person in this process sees their ball in court. So in this case, job's been completed, PO's been received, it's been reviewed, it's now ready to invoice. Maybe that flags somebody else in the organization. In this case, I'm just going to do it all. I just need to click create invoice. And what it's going to do, it's going to take the original notes from the call, plus the notes the technician had entered on his mobile app, and rewrite that into a problem resolution format. The AI is going to do that. Now, if for some reason I don't like what the AI has given me, I can tell it to kick rocks and try again. Or I can come in here and edit it just like any other text box you would ever deal with. But what's slick is, or at least what I've been told, is this sort of end to end, just the part that we've talked about in the back office, saves folks like 30 minutes an invoice compared to what they're doing today, depending on how they're doing it today.
Yeah,
Now,
I'll chime in. Like honestly, like I obviously I don't use this tool for invoicing, but I use my own AI tool to for. I'm a writer for those on the call, so I do a lot of writing all day long, and to not at least at bare minimum to not start at zero, to not be the one that has to originate the original thought. Yes, I might have to edit or tweak a thing, but I'll tell you, it saves me hours and hours and hours a week. It's phenomenal to have AI to help you kind of do the brainstorming, do some of the heavy lifting right off the bat for you.
absolutely, I think it's an incredible tool. Historically, folks have had to rewrite these notes. They've had to decipher these notes if they're handwritten. They had to track these notes down because where were they, RC? Were they in a Google Doc? Were they on like a PDF, a fillable PDF that they filled out? Or even if they've got software in place, a lot of softwares make this job review, they break it up by day. So it's like you have to, if we're out there for 3 days, you have to do like 3 reviews. It's like, no, we want to review the whole job, but also allow you guys the ability to invoice this out however you see fit. So if I was out there for multiple days, I could invoice just certain days, or I could just invoice parts. I could just invoice labor. Um, so very flexible on the invoicing side of things and speeding this up. Now, you all, I won't ask you to put it in the chat, but the folks that I talk to are doing sometimes thousands of invoices a week, at least hundreds, right? Hundreds, if not thousands. And if we're saving across this whole process, right, across from the technician to the dispatcher to the back office, if I saved you guys, even just call it 15 minutes, multiply that out. Holy smokes, does that number get out of hand, right? You multiply that 15 minutes by the blended rate of all three of those roles and responsibilities, and you multiply that by as many invoices y'all have to do for the year, and you'll see sort of where that value is, not just getting the money in quicker, but just in the time savings. Now we can do more work. And the whole idea behind build ops is changing fundamentally how you manage your business. Everybody historically is always talking about fundamentally managing a process. What we want to do is shift that from managing a process to managing the exceptions. Because if you have a good process that automates this work, as we've kind of shown, then what you're looking for is just the ones that are falling out of that process, the exceptions. And when you do that, you've got a lot more bandwidth. We won't kind of hold you any longer here. Let's go ahead and create that invoice, and we'll see that information that we put on when we created the job. We're going to see the PO number. We're going to see that work order number. We're going to see the specific, here, I'll zoom this in, the specific billing for that specific site, because this specific site has to be attention XYZ, but the other site for the same customer needs to be attention ABC. We're able to handle that. That PO number that we captured, we've got it. Well, if we didn't get it, we can still put that in. That work order number, if there was a not to exceed, we would see that. Some of our folks also utilize what we would call a blanket PO, where the customer has issued you a PO, you know what it is, for $50,000, let's say. And you need to use that PO number over and over again until you hit that $50,000 mark. And don't you dare invoice them for $50,001 in total. So we'll add all those up and make sure you're not exceeding your blanket PO values. Again, you get the invoice summary, and we get a nice breakdown of the information that that has been entered that gave us these totals. Now, I don't always want to give this level of detail to a customer. What's really slick is you're able to assign an invoice preset to a customer. You're able to switch these things on and off, pick and choose what's going to be shown to the customer and how that's supposed to lay out for them, create that as a preset, and then assign that preset to a customer so that when they get their invoice, maybe they don't require the details. We're just going to show them the subsections or the grand total or whatever it is, because we don't want our we don't want our customers asking dumb questions about their invoice. So able to limit what we want to show them to only what's required. Too often, this is what I hear, RC. Hey, what did we invoice them last time? Right? And then someone's digging through some paperwork trying to figure out how much, or do we show them the details? Oh, let me look at the old invoice. And I've been in those offices, seen those conversations happen. And to be honest with you, a lot of times they end up finding out that they had been doing it wrong for the last year because we did up their rate, but nobody told the other guy. And now they've been getting a discount on their service. And that's fine. Hey, we don't mind giving discounts to good customers, but we want to at least let them know they're getting a discount instead of just giving it away for free. So kind of end to end, trying to hit that window. And I think the big way to understand, are we hitting that window or not, is with our reporting engine. Everything comes back to reporting. BuildOps is built on a business analytics reporting tool that will let you report on all sorts of company metrics. So, well, how many days is it taking for us to get those invoicing out? I'm at 6.4, right? I'm right there in that sweet spot. How long is it taking for me to close out the jobs? How many jobs are we creating? How many are we billing? The old saying is you can't manage what you can't measure. Any piece of data that you all have entered into BuildOps, we can use that as a sort, filter, or an item to be reported on, because ultimately this is where we're able to shift that from a process management to exception management. Reporting is what allows you to do that, because it will bubble up and surface the ones that are falling outside of that queue.
Awesome. As we wind down, I'm actually going to launch the last poll of the webinar. And just to talk a little bit more about so Justin walked through a bunch of different things in general, but also specifically to the BuildOps platform. So we'd be interested to hear how effective the information was. So from everything you learned today, would love for you to respond with what you think your next steps are for your team. Any final thoughts over there, Justin?
I think the biggest thing that I see, and I've been doing this a long time, I know that I'm in a very unique position. Very few people have had the opportunity to have a 10-year career meeting with only successful specialty commercial contractors. And in that time, I've seen a reoccurring theme, which most folks want to make the change, but they're afraid of what that change will look like. And so one thing that I like to say about BuildOps in general, most other software companies are a sales organization. That's what they do. They sell. BuildOps is more of a consultative, more of an implementation style organization. And we will overinvest in your guys' success, because ultimately it does us no good for you to be a customer for 1 year. We need long-term partnerships. And how do you get long-term partnerships? It's the same way in software as you do with as a material vendor, right? You essentially need to provide a great product and a high level of customer service. And we know that the biggest push is that first 90 days to help get something like this in place. Once it's in place, it's usually from there you see the value, and there's no question on whether you're going to keep utilizing it. Too often softwares die on the shelf. They're purchased, they're put on the shelf for next spring or later this year or whatever it is, and just dies right there, never gets rolled out. So we'll really focus on the implementation of the software, not just, selling you the software, but actually getting it in place.
Amazing. All right, folks, as a reminder, a couple things you see on the screen here. You can visit us at buildops.com. You can also scan that QR code if you want to, or if you're able to head on over to the website. You can also email us directly at sales@buildops.com to learn a little bit more. Maybe you'll run paths with Justin again. He's a great guy who likes to talk about adult sodas a lot. So other than that, again, I will email you. I believe it's going to go out tomorrow. It'll be a recording of this and a couple other things as well to support the conversation that we had today. If you have any questions, please reach out to us and reply back to the email I sent out tomorrow. And if you have any ideas for other topics you want to hear us cover, by all means, reply back to that email. Let us know, and we'll absolutely consider throwing that into our webinar calendar. Other than that, from Southern California over at Justin, who's staying safe over there, and from Tacoma, Washington up here where it is rainy, so I am safe. Thank you all. Have a great rest of your week, and a little late, but Happy New Year. Take care.